On today's World Insight, the Global South eager to develop amid a pandemic. How can South-South cooperation offer solutions?
If China has offered in the past decades the solutions and answers to poverty eradication, then the next phase China can really offer to the world. Knowledge and lessons learned, experiences gained in addressing inequality.
And amazing architecture, springing from the fertile imagination of a celebrated designer, Ma Yansong. A walkthrough of his work in the artist's words.
Hello and welcome to World Insight. I'm Tian Wei from Beijing. A senior UN official warned that food in Afghanistan could be out of stock as early as this month and urged the international community to step up and raise more funds to help with the country, as many are suffering from malnutrition. As Afghanistan grapples with conflict, the rest of the world is still facing the evolving coronavirus and climate change crisis. The need for international cooperation is imminent. The United Nations Day for South-South Cooperation will kick off on September the 12th. How will countries, particularly in the South, cooperate on both Afghan and global challenges while still trying to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development? For answers, I talked to Xiaojun Grace Wang, Deputy Director of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. Let's hear her thoughts. I'm joined by Grace Wang, Deputy Director of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. Grace, my first question to you, of course, is about Afghanistan. It is one of those least developed economies surrounded by developing countries. Tell me more from your perspective. How do you see its future after the earlier chaos?
Well, we talk about Afghanistan, of course, with a heavy heart. We keep Afghanistan people in our heart, and as United Nations Secretary General Mr. Guterres said, it takes the international community to jointly stay together, stay with Afghanistan people to ensure our support. So I see that there's hope. The international community should work together. I work for an office that promotes cooperation. So of course I would say it takes cooperation. It takes cooperation from the South-South angle, from the neighboring countries, from the countries that have the similar religious and cultural background to offer a source of inspiration. And also it takes effort from countries who have been affected by conflict and war and recovered from that kind of situation to offer their real experiences and lessons learned.
If you look at Afghanistan, there are several questions already on the line. How to rebuild, right, the economy, and how to revive a country that's been devastated by war. All at the same time, it's really a huge challenge. From South-South cooperation perspective, what are some of the concrete things, Grace, do you think your office and your partners could promote and help?
Yes, indeed. I think South-South cooperation fundamentally is about developing countries working together. And the United Nations role is to facilitate at the request of developing countries. So when this kind of solidarity is put into concrete action, the countries of developing world, they come together with their agreed solidarity expression. And then the United Nations, whenever can be requested to provide our assistance, we are always there.
When you think about the pandemic now we are facing now, certainly many of the developing countries have been suffering the most, whether it is access to medicine, access to vaccines, and access to international cooperation. How do you see South-South cooperation today in an epidemic era, in a way?
I can see this is the hour of need for international cooperation, including South-South cooperation. And I really see that humankind is facing this grave challenge. But I also see the hope that solidarity is really in action. At the beginning of the pandemic, remember, China has received donation and assistance from many countries. And since then, China has delivered medical supplies and support to 160 countries and over 13 international organizations. Especially China made this commitment to donate, to supply 2 billion vaccine doses this year,
Yes.
and to contribute to COVAX $100 million. This is strong commitment, and this is example for the world. Also, I think the most commendable from the South-South perspective is vaccine production cooperation with developing countries. And that is truly helping developing countries to have their capacity to really recover and respond well to this pandemic. Only by working together, we can overcome this challenge.
There are a lot of things going on, but at the same time, South-South cooperation, Grace, according to the description on your website, is about working on helping infrastructure building, helping energy and environment, SMEs, talent resources, health, and education sectors. All of these are your priorities, but now with the pandemic still going on and the variants of one sort or another, we still do not know the potential. So among all of these list of things to do, what are the biggest challenges that you see today?
South-South cooperation is really to support achieving sustainable development goals. So if we are thinking about the biggest challenge for South-South cooperation, that is the same as the biggest challenge for sustainable development. It's about economic growth, social development, and environmental sustainability. On each dimension, the world has made great progress, but putting the 3 together to achieve the 3 together in a sustainable way, that is the biggest challenge. And I see that China can really play a champion role in this. For example, China not only eradicated extreme poverty, which is more on the economic but also multidimensional poverty perspective. China is now also sustaining that and trying to achieve better equality. And China has committed for peaking its carbon emission by 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2060.
Right.
So all this together, it is the package of solution to the biggest challenge of our world today.
Very interesting. You raised the 3 issues. Let me ask one of those, which is poverty alleviation. We already see that being achieved. China eradicated extreme poverty. So Grace, the thing is about China's poverty alleviation is that it never wanted to promote so-called its model to the rest of the world, but rather only want to do experience sharing. Even though we see some other countries try to promote their models of various sorts to the other parts of the world. How do you see this China approach, and what does that mean to South-South cooperation, your principle?
Eradicating extreme poverty, first of all, from the South-South perspective, it has injected a strong sense of confidence to the developing countries that this is possible. That's number 1 contribution. Number 2, share the knowledge learned, the experiences, and reflecting on the lessons, and make that a public good for global development. That is the second, and that is the most important contribution to the world. So I'm not thinking any country is exporting models. Actually, in our office, we have this global platform called South-South Galaxy. It encourages countries to share your knowledge, your solutions, your innovations with each other. Countries big or small, at different development stages, you all have something to share. And that makes every country, when they share their knowledge, they themselves as a shining star. And only by connecting the shining stars, we can build the galaxy and build the future together. So I think we shouldn't shy away from sharing knowledge. Knowledge is only powerful when it is shared.
One of the things many in the developing countries, Grace, are frustrated about is the lack of information in the public domain internationally, globally speaking, about developing countries, about emerging economies. As we know, the media today, many of those are still originally coming from developed economies, and that provides some kinds of deficit of information. How much do you think your office, together with your partner, will be able to change to a certain extent that picture?
Yeah, exactly. We have done a few things which I think are very much needed and more efforts are needed. Number one is to promote sharing of knowledge on a horizontal platform.
Right.
For example, I mentioned the digital platform, South-South Galaxy, where we have already 390 institutions from across the world, including about 40 UN entities and about 80 member states, sharing their knowledge on that platform. So this is the one-stop shop for South-South cooperation information. At the same time, we are compiling good practices of South-South cooperation for sustainable development goals. We have now submission from all over the world, all countries, about 700 plus good practices. And this is available not only in English. Sometimes language can become a barrier to the access to information. We have it in 6 languages. And also we have South-South in Action knowledge series, which means any institution, any country, come forward and we help you to document the way you practice South-South cooperation for development. Your principles, approaches, innovations, solutions, your catalog of your offerings. So that way, I think it is to share more information and make it really horizontal, accessible. Also, I think thought leadership from Global South is very important. The voice of global thinkers from the South should be heard. Knowledge and ideas shouldn't have hierarchy, shouldn't have boundaries. So we have established a South-South Global Thinkers Initiative that is a network of networks of think tanks. It's called Global Coalition of Think Tank Networks on South-South Cooperation. It currently involves over 250 think tanks, mainly from developing countries. They come together with our support and facilitation to conduct joint research on cutting-edge policy issues. They come together for policy dialogue and to advance South leadership from developing world.
Sounds fascinating to me, Grace, what you just said about that part, information, knowledge sharing. Let me also touch on one of the points you earlier mentioned, China's practice, for example, about common prosperity. Now it is still a process in practice right now. As you may know, there are several new policies coming out trying to, in a way, share how shall I say, to make sure the common prosperity in the Chinese society. But this is an ongoing process. We do not yet know what is the biggest takeaways from this process. So how is your office monitoring countries like China and others while they are trying to tackle some of the biggest problems and challenges of their societies? What is that process like for you?
Development sometimes is an experimental process.
It's true.
We don't pretend that we hold keys to all questions. Inequality is a challenge for the world, for developed and developing countries. So this is really the whole question for humankind now. If China has offered in the past decades the solutions and answers to poverty eradication, then the next phase China can really offer to the world knowledge and lessons learned, experiences gained in addressing inequality. So I see the actions are being experimented and practiced, which any actions in addressing this tough question of inequality may be risky to take, but no action is the biggest risk in this era. So I think taking actions towards the right direction and adjust along the way, it is how China gained success in the past. China always was able to pilot and test out innovations and then systematically scale it up. It is a learning process. It takes determined leadership and political will to charge towards the right direction.
Well said. It's wonderful to see women leaders like you working for United Nations, particularly on the South-South cooperation front, which brings us to a very crucial question. In many of the South countries, shall we say, the cultures vary, traditions vary, and histories vary. How do you see, the stages of development for women, and how much do you see the experience sharing and solidarity can be achieved by women in the South?
Yes, that is a fundamental question. If we are talking about achieving sustainable development, leaving no one behind, obviously half of the population must not be left behind. And women leadership, as you mentioned, I think is very important. Today's world needs collaboration spirit, needs a wholesome vision, and it needs proactive actions. These three characteristics, I can proudly say, many women leaders have. And imagine, I'm imagining a program. I wanted to champion it. Imagine 100 women leaders from all different sectors from developing world come together to advocate, to nurture, to support, and to work together to create bigger space for women leadership, for more collaborative world. I think we are very close to the future we want.
Looking forward to that day. Grace Wang, thank you so much, Director.
Yes, we will do that.
The Deputy Director of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation. What a pleasure, ma'am. Thank you so much. Up next, the story of an architect from China for the world. The story of Ma Yansong. Welcome back. This is World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. What is the essence of architecture in the eyes of an architect? Ma Yansong, who is one of the most well-celebrated architect of his generation, has his own interpretations. Ma was born in Beijing, a place he called a playground when he was little. He shuttled atop the roofs of traditional hutong homes and acquired an appreciation for the natural elements that comprise a Chinese garden. His childhood experiences laid the foundation for his future architectural flair. Hutong Bubble 32 is one of his design concepts. Let's take a look at this interesting work. you come up with the idea? Bubbles.
I want to reflect the surroundings. You see this reflection?
Yes.
You can see yourself. Distorted. Same for the surrounding building, the sky, the tree, all distorted.
It's very different from the rest of the courtyard, isn't it?
Yeah.
You got 2 bubbles.
Yes.
Where's the other?
The other one is near Tiananmen Square. Another courtyard.
We love bubbles, don't we?
Bubbles.
I remember your childhood, huh? You blow the bubbles. It was so much fun in that hutong, right?
It's fun. It's fun.
So where does this inspiration come from?
I think Beijing, at the moment when I created this, Beijing was all about the monumental buildings, big buildings. I think maybe this is very personal.
Yeah,
Belongs to
I love it.
one small courtyard. So small, cute, and the reflection. Also, I want to challenge the idea only traditional looking building can be created in the traditional neighborhood. So
Because we have to renew them anyway, right?
yeah, at some point, if we think 100, 200 years,
Yeah. Have you ever lived here?
no.
For example, spending the night with your bubble?
I used to drink here.
Was it good?
Yes.
Does it feel good?
Spend some time with
Bubbly
my friends.
wine?
Yeah. Beijing city gave me a big impact because it's more like a playground for me. I learned how to swim in Hohai, and we have a mountains, right? We have a beautiful nature like a park in the city center. So every day after school, I go there. So I live also around this area, and in the Hutong area, it's also playful. You have a neighborhood and all the kids. We go up to the roof, because only from the roof you can go from one courtyard to another. So I think the nature become the key to the city. You have a space. You don't only have the buildings, but also the nature, the mountain, the river, the lake.
Ma, you know, China seems to, at least, have a lot of wealth accumulated over the past 20 to 30 years. Meanwhile, you also have China that's building infrastructure everywhere with the so-called China speed and quite good quality. How do you see, as an architect, all these changes and elements are having an impact on your customer thinking about the architectures and also your own designing capabilities and directions recently?
I think those are great things. Great things. Everyone thinks that's a great. I think also great. But my habit is I see everything from critical part. I think architecture has to deal with people. Being grand or biggest or tallest is not the key. How people feel it is a key. So that's my challenge, I think. And to understand this point is also a challenge because you can easily feel good otherwise, especially after this pandemic. The West, my colleague from the West also have less projects. So the new concept, new ideas merge slower than before. And so if you don't have your own agenda, it's easily getting lost.
Or just get by easily?
Yeah, you get easily. You think, oh, I'm already doing good, doing the biggest, or that's easy. I mean, probably build a tallest building in the world was the big thing, but now people going Mars. This is a building is not it's not really challenging. So when I look back to all the traditional or historical masterpiece, no matter what the scale, but they all touch humans' inner emotion. So after hundreds of years, people still fall in love.
Feel it.
Yeah, that's really moving, really powerful.
What echoes with you?
So I always like this American architect called Louis Kahn. He already passed away. His masterpiece called the Salk Institute. It's a modern building with a square in the middle facing ocean. It's really a spiritual place. And when I go there, I went there several times. When I go, it's San Diego, California. I always see people sitting there looking at the ocean, the sky. It's a really beautiful, also moving place. Sometimes I imagine maybe after thousands of years, people find this place, they still feel, oh, this is a genius. And I like Gaudi as well. Gaudi is a really artistic and a special person. He's a proof that the human beings are great. Without them, it's more boring. The building is not only about material, technology, or function. It's already automatically include all this art and the senses, the feelings. So all these things, so I think from the past is really the force make me feel, we should do something similar today.
I see an architect and an artist sitting right in front of me, Ma, when I see you today. But I know you are also a team leader. You have to make your team energetic about the ideas that you have in mind, and sometimes describe those ideas to them, which you cannot even describe in language to yourself. How are you doing it?
I think we all struggle. Sometimes you invent a method that you can apply to different teams and projects, but I don't do that because I try to find a unique thing through different projects. So I'm looking for that struggle through every project. So I have to give that to my team as well. But I try to use this discussion as an opportunity to imagine things.
We are in a very different period of time, isn't it? Ma, I mean, you graduated from Yale University. At that time when you were in the university or just graduated, China is on the rise. And over the past few years, everybody wanted to come over here, work with China. Let's see whether we could find some gold here, but also find the talents in China. Now we're going through a very different period of time. The pandemic, of course, separated many of us worldwide. Meanwhile, China is going through a very unique stage of experience in which China is trying to find ways to explain itself to the others, while others have a mixture of misconceptions and hard efforts to understand China. So how do you see this as having an impact on you as an architect, and also just as a Chinese artist, simply put?
I don't want people look at me, think I'm special because I'm from China. Because I want them to like my architecture because they're special, because they cannot do it. Right now we have buildings in America, in Europe, in different places. They have a lot of teachers, like when I was a student. So I see them as examples. I learn from them. But what I learn is they are really critical and creative and always trying to do things differently. I think that's what China needs to do something new and beneficial to other people as well. I remember when I graduated from Yale, my dean told me, now is a day you should forget everyone you have heard from our teachers. I think that's important. That's cool, and that's important for everyone to eventually find yourself. So I think we learned a lot from the West, and to discover our tradition and find out what the future could be, what the inspiration we can learn from that is our job.
In recent years, many of Ma's designs echoed his idea of the Shanshui city, a vision to create a new balance among society, the city, and the environment through architecture. He has created a series of imaginative works which have dazzled the world. Lotus Pond, water lily blossom. Nice.
For Paris, you have a sunshine, beautiful nature, surrounded by city.
Really cool.
Beautiful.
So when are we going to have this ready?
Next year.
So many projects take so much energy. How did you do it? I mean, how are you doing it?
Well, actually, I'm selecting projects. I cannot handle too much. This is more or less like a studio, like artist studio. So I need to hands-on on every project, on every level, every detail. So I have a limited energy, actually. I'm trying my best.
How would you describe your style, though? People see you doing so many different kinds of projects.
I like nature. I think architecture is a second nature. We should not only building objects, but also environment that people can have a emotional connection to this environment. So probably natural is my style. I don't know if I have a style, because sometimes style means some language, fixed language, or some very special shapes, but I change. Every time I do things differently, because I want to build up this unique dialogue to different environment.
There were a time when everybody is building iconic architecture around the world, and you see so many master names, but it seems that we are graduating from that period of time. And as you said, yourself is a reflection of that with nature. Do you see it as an evolution or just as a different styles of an architect at different stages?
But now everyone talking about fixing the nature environment and making cities sustainable. But I think creativity still should be a very important key, because we cannot making green, boring cities. That's another issue. So for sure, the architecture will change. We need to pay more attention to the environment and energy and the green, but the creativity should be still the...
You know, this transformation, which not only preserve the creativity, but also to work with your surrounding even more than most architects did before. This transformation is very interesting. I'm sure you put a lot of thoughts into it. You know, sometimes maybe cannot find the directions, maybe sometimes it's easy to get. Tell me more about this transformation that you're making together with other architects.
I think sometimes when we call iconic buildings in the past, it's more about making a stamp, making a trademark for a place. So people pay more attention to that. So that can attract a lot of attention to such a project or place. It's rather a commercial driven thing. But now I think we need to talk about average people, like in the city, like how people feel, like how this is meaningful to more people.
To them.
To everyone. So when you do public buildings or public space, first you need to open this space. You cannot close it. So it needs to be open and everyone can occupy that. And second, it also needs to be spiritual place, because it's not good enough just offering a space. You need to offering a quality space. So
An ambience also.
yes, also has to be beautiful, has to be imaginary. It has to help people to do things, to beautiful things, and good things to each other, and encourage people to meet each other, talk to each other.
Which project makes you think about that?
Most of my projects are public projects, so almost all the projects I think about this. I don't do private houses. I think, for example, the kindergarten I designed in Beijing. It's called a courtyard kindergarten because there's an old building inside the site, and then we create this colorful roof around this old building, and kids can go around. They can run around the roof. Kids, they don't talk. You can only guess what they like, right? But what I know as a parent, I want to offer them the real thing. I don't want to, for example, make the new building look like old. I want the new building and old building to be clearly different, and they can still coexist and talk to each other. So when kids, they play in this space, they know what's real, what's old, what's new, and what's the future.
Did you try your kids?
No, they're too old. But I think the deeper meaning for me, I don't know if they can feel it. It's I want to use this small project to reflect the bigger thinking. What's the relationship between new and old? Because in our city, I'm a Beijing person, and we have always a struggle. You respect the old, so you have to do something look like old. That's not the real. That's being beautiful or not. That's the second thing. But you have to be respectful to the real life.
Talking about romantic.
This is a people called Marilyn Monroe Towers. We built this many years ago in Toronto, Canada.
Yes. Was that the original idea, Marilyn Monroe?
No, we just want to do something curvy. We want to do something not boxy, not boxy. So we make this a very organic, natural form.
That's the Beijing thing.
That's a Beijing tower we call Shanshui, next to the Chaoyang Park. So we want to make modern towers, modern architecture, part of the nature.
You know, overlooking the CCTV, from CCTV, I could still see this building.
Yeah. Do you think that's a part of the park?
Interesting. It's an interesting park.
You see this colorful roof? Yeah. That's a playground for kids. It's a kindergarten. Under the roof is classrooms. We're connected to this old courtyard house. So as a kid, you can use old house, new building as a one kindergarten, and then you can go up to the roof and then run
Which
around.
secretive corner is the most fun place to you?
I think here. If you can climb here, then you can see the roof from high up.
I see. The bridge.
That's the latest project we just completed. It's called a railway station in the forest, but actually in the city center. We create this green space. We put the whole station underground.
Wow.
And then we kept one really old building.
This one?
That was a building built more than 100 years ago.
Oh,
That's the old train station. So the new train station kept very low to respect the old.
So how would you get your inspirations?
I'm absorbing everything I'm interested without a goal. Like, so sometimes from movie, from magazine, from some art pieces.
Ah, what kind of movie you like watching?
Yeah, I like all kinds of movies. Sometimes when I'm tired, I watch funny movies. And I still remember, because we are building the Lucas Museum.
Yes.
And I remember when I do the competition, I didn't watch Star Wars movies. I want to watch them all. But I always fall asleep. I couldn't finish all the episodes.
Did you tell them that you fall asleep?
After we win the project, George Lucas told me he think all the arcade competitors watch too much Star Wars movies because they do things similar to the movie. But the funny thing is, I asked him, why you choose us? He said, I like one of your buildings. That's the Erdos Museum we built in China. And I remember the reason I created that metal bubble in the desert. That was one scenery that I remembered from one movie. And then later I discovered that's a Star Wars movie. I didn't remember. But that's how I collect information. I just remember things that I really feel strongly, and I store them in my head. I don't know, somehow when you are struggled or nervous about something, these things will jump out.
The fascinating story of Ma Yansong, a well-celebrated architect from China for the world. That's all we have for today. If you'd like to see more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei in Beijing on behalf of the team. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.